You've been told that eggs are the only high protein source you should be eating. Well, think again. There's actually a food that's cheaper, some say cleaner, and can burn fat even faster, especially if you're over 50. The crazy part, most doctors don't even mention this food. I'll show you exactly what it is, how to use it, and why it's a total game changer for metabolism and building muscle. Look, here's the big issue. After age 50, your body naturally loses muscle due to something called sarcopenia. On average, you lose about 1% of muscle per year after age 50. This leads to a slower metabolism, higher insulin resistance, and at the end of the day, more belly fat. So what's the solution? Protein. Bioavailable, high-quality protein. We want protein sources that your metabolism can actually absorb and repair tissues and build muscle. Eggs are great, don't get me wrong, but they're not the only answer here. One egg contains about 6 grams of protein. It has healthy fats, B vitamins, choline, good cholesterol, easy to digest. I love eggs, but there's a hidden protein powerhouse that you're not eating, and that is cottage cheese. Okay, I know it sounds basic, but it's actually one of the most underrated fat-burning, muscle-building foods out there. Now, when we compare eggs to cottage cheese has less calories, which we don't really focus on calories, but because it has less fat, it has less calories. It has more protein per calorie than eggs. It contains a specific protein called casein, which is a slow-digesting protein that helps you feel full and satiated longer. So it helps with sugar binges, carbohydrate cravings, snacking and grazing. It helps to prevent that. Protein is also rich in calcium and phosphorus, which are important for bone and muscle health. Cottage cheese is high in leucine, the key amino acid that triggers muscle protein synthesis. Just half a cup of cottage cheese, and I'll let you know in a little bit the best cottage cheese to look out for and the worst ones out there, but just half a cup gets you about 14 grams of protein, and it's under 100 calories. This is nature's perfect fat loss food. So why isn't this food talked about more? Why hasn't your doctor mentioned it? Well, because most doctors are not trained in nutritional biochemistry. They don't look at leucine thresholds, insulin responses, or protein absorption curves. They lump all dairy together. They fear saturated fat, lactose, and they completely miss this nuance that I'm speaking about today. Cottage cheese is actually low in lactose, as I mentioned, high in protein, and if you choose grass-fed organic cottage cheese, it's one of the cleanest animal proteins available. So how exactly do you use cottage cheese to burn fat and build muscle? Let's get into that part of the lesson. Here's some actionable strategies I want you to take. The best time to eat your cottage cheese is going to be your first meal of the day. I would recommend you break your fast with 1 cup of cottage cheese. This will give you a steady, muscle-feeding fuel source. Some people choose to have cottage cheese before bed. Now, in general, if you've been following my lessons, I'm not a fan of eating before bedtime. There are some exceptions though. If you had a half a cup of cottage cheese to a full cup of cottage cheese about a couple of hours before bed, the casein will digest slowly and can actually support overnight repair and preventing muscle breakdown. So maybe on a day where you strength train really hard and you want to be able to recover, you have half a cup to a cup of cottage cheese a couple of hours before bed. Now, what can you combine it with? Well, you can have a handful, which is about a half a cup of organic blueberries on your cottage cheese. You could include a tablespoon of organic chia seeds or flax seeds, which are rich in fiber and omega-3 fats. And you could sprinkle some high-quality Ceylon cinnamon on top as well to help with blood sugar support. And if you really want to make this a higher protein meal, you could put a scoop of high-quality collagen protein powder or beef protein isolate in the cottage cheese as well to increase the protein content, which makes you feel more full and satiated as well. The amazing thing about cottage cheese is that it has a low glycemic index, meaning it doesn't spike your blood sugar very high. It has a very high satiety index, which keeps you full and reduces cravings. It supports bone density thanks to the high amount of calcium, magnesium, and vitamin K2, especially in the grass-fed versions. You know, this lesson was inspired by my friend Lisa Oakes, who is in her menopause years. She had osteoporosis. She was gaining weight. and she did two primary things. She did many things, but two primary things. She started to play pickleball, which is a sport she loves and she's a little obsessed about. So she found an activity that was exercise that didn't feel like exercise, and she started eating cottage cheese every single day, or at least most days. And she actually has lost a ton of weight, and she reversed her osteoporosis. Pretty cool. And lastly, cottage cheese is hormone friendly. It's a slow digesting protein to help stabilize insulin and blood sugar and cortisol, which all helps with burning belly fat. Now, what to look for when you're purchasing your cottage cheese. Not all cottage cheese is created equal. Here's what to avoid. Avoid any brands that have added sugars or fruit flavors. These hidden sugars derail fat loss. Avoid brands that use low-quality dairy from grain-fed cows. These are usually higher in inflammatory omega-6 fats. And avoid products that use thickeners and gums. This is added junk like carrageenan, maltodextrin, and they're all hard on your digestive system. Instead, choose full-fat, or at the very least 2% organic cottage cheese, ideally from grass-fed, grass-finished cows, and get the plain unsweetened varieties. The brand that I use is called Good Culture. It's clean, it's tasty, it's gut friendly, and some even include probiotics. So you can find Good Culture at most supermarkets in the United States. And here's a little bonus tip for you before I get to your questions you submitted on this topic. You could try freezing your cottage cheese like ice cream, adding cinnamon and protein powder for a high protein dessert. Actually, it tastes pretty good. I want to give you a free resource. Look, if you're looking to burn fat, I have a free ebook that's going to teach you how to lose 10 pounds of fat in 7 days following 3 simple rules. It's a free ebook you can read in 30 minutes. Follow this routine for the next week. You'll lose 10 pounds in 7 days. If you go to burnfatbook.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen to claim that free ebook. You simply put your name and email, and you'll be delivered to your email inbox the free ebook. Second thing I want to mention is that I'm doing a speaking tour for my latest book, Metabolic Freedom. I'd love to meet you in person. We're doing book signings, meet and greets. I'm doing a keynote tour across the United States and across the world at Saudi Arabia. So I'll be in Orlando, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, Pensacola, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Saudi Arabia, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we're adding more dates. If you go to benazadi.com/events, you can see my upcoming speaking tour. I'd love to meet you in person. Now let's get to your questions. Is cottage cheese okay if I'm lactose intolerant? As I mentioned earlier, cottage cheese contains about low to moderate levels of lactose, so it depends on how sensitive you are. But the good news is that there are lactose-free options when it comes to cottage cheese. The brand I mentioned earlier, Good Culture, has that option, and the brand Green Valley also has that option. So it depends on how sensitive you are, and if you are sensitive, get the lactose-free variety. What's the difference between casein protein and whey protein, especially, and which is better after 50? Well, whey protein is very quick digesting, and it has a very high insulin response. It's called a insulinogenic protein. That is problematic, especially if you are trying to burn fat. And when you are over age 50, you're more insulin resistant. So anything that spikes insulin high is an issue, especially after the age of 50. Unfortunately, whey protein spikes insulin very high. And I'm not against whey protein altogether. If you could find yourself a high-quality, organic, grass-fed, cold-pressed, tested for contaminants whey protein and have it after a workout, that's fine. But if you're having it just for breakfast or for a meal, that's not a good idea. Casein protein, on the other hand, is slow digesting. It does not have that high insulin response. That's why I'm a bigger fan of casein protein, like what's found in cottage cheese, than whey protein powders in general. Can I eat cottage cheese every day, or should I cycle it? If you follow my work, you know I'm a big fan of cyclical eating, food rotation. So although I just made the case for cottage cheese, I wouldn't recommend having cottage cheese every day, just like I wouldn't recommend having any food every single day. I'd like the idea of rotating it. So maybe Monday through Friday, you have your cottage cheese, Saturday and Sunday, no cottage cheese, or maybe you just have it on the days that you're active, you're exercising, you're training, but I don't recommend having it every single day. And you might be wondering why. Well, because when you eat the same food over and over and over, your body starts to develop antibodies for them, and you could actually become sensitive to that food. So if you eat eggs every day for years, you become sensitive to eggs typically. Avocado, same thing. Cottage cheese, same thing. But when you rotate it, you don't have that issue. How does cottage cheese compare to Greek yogurt for fat loss and muscle? Ooh, great question. Well, in terms of the protein per calories, it's very similar. Not much difference there. What is different is that cottage cheese is mostly casein protein, which is slow digesting. Greek yogurt is a blend of whey and casein. So if you have Greek yogurt after a workout is best because of the whey component. I just explained why. Cottage cheese you can have for breakfast, a meal, or around, at nighttime. Greek yogurt, because of the whey content, you want to have after exercise, after a workout. Will eating dairy like cottage cheese increase estrogen levels or mess with hormones? Not if you're getting a clean source of cottage cheese. That's why I emphasize, organic, grass-fed, grass-finished cottage cheese. These are cows that were not treated with antibiotics and steroids and hormones. So as long as you're getting it from a quality source, like Good Culture, the brand I mentioned earlier, you're going to be totally fine. It should not interfere with the hormones. It actually should support hormone function. What is the best times of day to eat cottage cheese protein? If I'm doing intermittent fasting, I would have it as the first thing you do to break your fast. So if you skip breakfast and you have lunch and dinner, then your breakfast is at lunch. You're breaking the fast. So whatever that first meal is where I would recommend having the cottage cheese to build lean muscle, preserve lean muscle as you break that fast. It's a great meal to break your fast with. Can I eat cottage cheese on a ketogenic diet, or I would add a carnivore diet or a low carbohydrate diet? It's keto friendly. Yes. It's low carb friendly. Absolutely. Is it carnivore friendly? Depends on what level of carnivore you do. Technically, it comes from an animal. So to me, it is carnivore friendly. But if you're doing carnivore because of severe autoimmune disease, then you're probably staying away from dairy, including cottage cheese. So it would be a no for a carnivore diet like that. For a carnivore diet, what's considered a lion diet for autoimmune disease, you just want beef, salt, and beef tallow. That is the most healing diet for autoimmune. But if you're doing a more of a flexible version of carnivore like I do, then it fits right into your carnivore diet. I personally have it on carnivore. How much protein should I aim for daily if I'm over 50 and want to build muscle? I get this question a lot. The protein requirements that I would recommend for you is to consume on most days 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight, your goal weight. So first of all, you need to determine what is your ideal body weight? What is that weight, that total number on the scale you want to hit? You might be there or you might not be there. Let's say you're not there. Let's say you weigh 212 pounds, but your goal weight, your ideal body weight is 145 pounds. Well, then you want to consume 145 grams of protein most days out of the week. And by having cottage cheese, it's really easy to do that. In 2 scoops is about 30 grams of protein. And then you add the other animal-based foods. It's really easy to hit that marker. If you're having trouble calculating, how do I know how much protein I'm consuming? There's a ton of free apps out there. One of them that comes to mind is Chronometer. You can download it for free by going over to chronometer.com/ketocamp. You can download that for free. We'll drop a link for it down below. That's CRONO meter.com/KETOKAMP, and we'll drop that link down below. Are there any risks with too much protein from dairy if I have kidney issues? Well, like I always say, if you have a pre-existing health condition, it's always smart to speak with your doctor before making any nutritional, dietary, supplement changes. Like none of this is medical advice. Always work with your health practitioner. Hopefully you're working with a functional practitioner who understands the latest research and is on board with animal-based protein. So is it a concern for somebody with a protein condition, kidney condition, Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but work with your practitioner on that. I cannot make that call for you. I hope this inspires you to eat your cottage cheese, 1/2 cup to a cup most days of the week. And if you do it, watch what it'll do. Let me know what you think. And if you're over 50, this is a must for you. Please share this with somebody you know who's over 50. Share it with anybody you know who could take value from a lesson like this. If you're listening on the podcast, leave it a rating and a review. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And by the way, if you're interested in learning more about how to burn stubborn belly fat, I recently published a video on why you won't lose belly fat until you fix this one thing. And here's a clip. I'm going to show you a clip from this recent lesson. Then click the video on the screen to watch the full lesson, and I'll see you there. Bye. All of these approaches actually worked at first. You see, I started to burn some belly fat, and then after a few weeks and months, the fat started to come back, and then it made it more difficult for me to continue burning that fat. I simply wanted to just lose some weight. Then I took a deep dive into how the metabolism actually works, to my surprise.